hail to Japan, and hello family all over. So nice to be with you. I wish I was there in person, obviously, but this is second best. So we have a gremlin, but this is a mystery school, and the gremlin is in. I'm going to sing for you, but you won't hear the music, so it will be collo voce to you, and let's just hope it goes in the lap of the gods. So here we go. One day at a time, sweet Jesus. Well, I'm met to human. For you, Sharon, I'm more than a man. Well, help me believe in what I can be and all that I am. Show me the stairway that I have to climb. Lord, for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, sweet Jesus, is all I'm asking from you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Or do you remember when you walked among men? Well, Jesus, you know, if you're looking below, it's worse now than then. There's cheating and stealing, violence and crime. So for my sake, teach me to take one day at a time. One day at a time, sweet Jesus, is all I'm asking from you. Just give me the strength to do every day what I have to do. Yesterday's gone, sweet Jesus, and tomorrow may never be mine. Lord, help me today, show me the way, one day at a time. Well, I hope that came across all right for you over there. Really good. So this is a family. So nice to be able to speak to you, and so many memories coming back with the connection with Japan, our Japanese family, and Tamo-san, and the time I had the blessings of staying with Tamo-san in the temple, and being given some real Karate Kid lessons. Because when I was first invited to the temple by Tamo-san, just before going, I was playing squash and I put my back out very badly. So everybody said to me, well, you can't even move, let alone go to Japan. I said, there's no way I'm not going to Japan. So I managed to carry 2 suitcases very carefully to keep my spine in a place where it wasn't pinching the nerve more. Arrived at the temple. Tamo-san was standing on the doorstep, and she looked at me and allowed me to walk even closer to her. When I got right in front of her with my suitcases in my hands, she put her arms around me and her hands precisely where I'd injured my back, and I felt this rush of light and life force going to my body. And the first word she said was dummy dummy. And I heard those words a lot during my time in the mystery school with Tamo-san, which means not good, you know. So and she told me from the next morning that she'd teach me how to heal myself. So I was thinking, oh, that's going to be all nice and lovey-dovey and spiritually wonderful. And she woke me up at 4:30 in the morning and took me down to the temple, to the dining room, where there was two buckets and a cloth. And she showed me put the water in one bucket, the cloth in the water, wring it out so it's just damp. And then she put the cloth on the floor and she was in a yoga position, the inverted V it's called. And she went like lightning down the temple floor and came all the way back, pointing to her back with one hand, in her 80s then, and showing me like this position, heal yourself, heal your back. And then she gave the cloth to me and she said, Johnson. And I had to do that every day that I was in the temple. And needless to say, it fixed my back. And she also said, no need gymnasiums. So that's just one of the encounters that I've been blessed to have on my journey with this fellowship family that has opened so many unimaginable doors in my life, in friendship and heart connections with all of you. So many amazing stories. Lovely listening to Joshua again this morning. I've been thinking on my journey all along, but this is what the title I've called it, know thyself. I know that we're all trying to learn to understand, what does that really mean? And in my journey, I suppose that's kind of been magnified, the question, because as a young entertainer, I was an impressionist and a comedian and a singer, and doing impressions every night of other people and jokes about other people. I had times in my life when I started to think, well, who am I? It's like, do I really always want to be somebody else just for the sake of entertainment and fame and fortune or whatever it brought me? Which it did, I'm glad to say, to some extent. So while I was in that kind of blinkered state of reaching and striving for fame and fortune, I remember sitting in the dressing room one night thinking, well, so what next? Another hit record, more audiences telling me I'm okay, blah, blah, blah. And after that, a friend of mine invited me to meditation, which I didn't know anything about then, because I was like this. The only thing that's going to make me happy is fame, fortune, the right partner, and all the stuff that we believe and clutter ourselves with. But in the meditation, to keep a long story short, I had what the yogis refer to as a Kundalini experience, which of course is what the 7 terraces are for, is to help us stimulate and awaken the life force coiled at the base of the spine until it rises and reaches the pineal gland. And now we know through brain research, when that happens, there is an electrobiochemical response within the brain. And there's an arc of light that goes from one side of the brain to the other and from the front to the back, forming a cross of light. It's such an experience, which is what happened to me at the age of 27. You transcend the normal conscious awareness of 5 sense, body, me, this is only all I am, and you reconnect with source. So having gone through that experience, I had no intellectual capacity whatsoever or experience to understand my own experience. So I know now, in retrospect, I put out a prayer from my heart. Please, God, send me somebody in a physical body that I can relate to, that can help me to understand my own experience. But how can that happen? How can you be shown that you are this light of creative conscious intelligence and still find yourself in a little body with a little unenlightened mind going, how the hell did that happen when normally I've got no concept of thinking like that? So, long story short, I'm looking for a teacher, and I hear about this man called Paul Solomon, who was speaking at the Festival of Mind, Body, Spirit in London. So I went there straight away. I sat in the audience, and from the entertainer's perspective, I was looking at Paul, and from the spiritual visionary perspective, I was looking at Paul, and I was just, my breath was taken out. Oh my God, this man, what a speaker, what a brilliant speaker. But he's not only speaking from his head, it's experiential knowledge he's talking to us about, which touched my soul in virtually every word he said. Though I knew I've got to be with this man after that. And after I came out of that, I said, like, so where are you off to? And he was off to Findhorn. So I went up to Findhorn, but I actually missed him because I missed the dates. And everybody was raving about this man, Paul Solomon, and his story about the Planetary Mystery School. I just knew I had to be with him, and I found out that he was doing an inner light consciousness workshop in London. I went to that workshop. I had experiences in the workshop where I went beyond fear again. It was a completely different way of experiencing my own source and spirituality. But I was so at peace and so inspired by what I was hearing and the like-mindedness of the group that had been drawn together with Paul there, that I went beyond the normal thinking process and experienced unconditional love. Completely transformed me from the inside out. So those experiences helped me to start understanding inner light consciousness. Not just something out there, a program outside, a God outside, teachings from different religions outside of me that are all helpful, but they're all saying basically the same thing. It's within you. Over the years, I have to say that inner light consciousness training program, of the many things I've looked at and experienced, has spoken to me most profoundly personally. It's been the thing that has helped me to literally shape myself. The biggest lesson from Paul was to shape my left brain process to be able to be active with my right brain process, because I was predominantly right brain, as a lot of entertainers are. But and because of that, I avoided a lot of things to do with left brain, because at school I was judged for being slow with maths and English and that kind of stuff. So that only represented judgment and self-consciousness to me. So Paul helped me to start healing that relationship or my thinking towards that. I wanted to honor Paul here and share one of the readings via source through Paul. Anyway, this is beautiful. There's a couple of lines about enlightenment. So what does it mean to be in light, truly in light in ourselves? Not just, again, a program called Inner Light Consciousness, but how do I take that internally? Because as many of us know now, that on the entrance to the mystery schools in ancient Greece and Egypt, the pre-initiate, the first thing he saw initiation up above the door was know thyself. And then you go inside. So from the mind into the heart, into the breath, into the body, and you get tested. So that's what's happening to all of us. Now, I love this reading. It's enlightenment is a change in your point of identity from result to cause, discovering who you are and who you have been all along, no longer identifying with the results of who you are, and instead realizing that you are the cause of who you are. So, as I said, my journey as an entertainer and being so many other people instead of myself, had been such a great reference point for me to understand the conditioning that we've all been brought through to believe I'm just this thought, this personality, this intellect, these talents, all of which are, as we know, most of us, just a result of our divine consciousness, but not who we are. And the challenge is to reverse that outward going consciousness back to source. So we're literally internalizing the process of going, this is who I really am. So I often ask in the groups that I'm working with, and you can answer this for yourselves. I can't see what you're doing, but maybe you can all put your hands up in the group. If you trusted your intuition, would you have done something differently in your life or in your business? Those of you that I can see, you can put your hands up if you want to. So if you'd have trusted your intuition, would you have done something differently in your life or in your business? Normally, in a group that I'm working with, even with very hardline left brain business people, all the hands go up. And then I say, okay, how is it that we can be so intelligent as to know, I shouldn't have thought like that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't be behaving like this. I shouldn't be relating to others like this. How is it that we can know that so well, instinctively, intuitively from the heart, and still not be smart enough to do something about changing it? And that's what Inner Light Consciousness Training Program helps us to forge ourselves into a conscious being able to do. So we can be a student of ourself from moment to moment. That's how I work with myself now. I often say to groups, I'm standing here in front of you speaking, but it's always as much for me as it is for you, because I hear my own words and then I hear my source through my heart saying to me, well, you know that, John, but you need to get that down a bit more in your own life. So that's how I measure myself every day in the process, including in this moment as we're working together. So a couple of other bits I want to read from source to you again, because without Paul, most of us wouldn't be here. Even some of you may not have had the opportunity to meet Paul, but his spirit is very much still speaking to us. Okay, this one is, shining your light in dark places must first mean the dark place within yourself. Seeing yourself as you are, that you might become who you can be without fearing what you have to contained within you, and revealing it so that you might be cleansed as a vessel for the manifestation of the Christos. This is what we would consider to be the Armageddon within yourself. And this is a result of man having separated the two hemispheres of his brain long ago and becoming the externalized thinker instead of the balanced thinker, internalizing the inner vision at the same time. In my experience with many Indigenous people and the yogis that I've traveled with, the lifestyles are guidelines, as we have in the Bible. They're guidelines for doing just that. You know, what does it mean to be in this instrument that God has allowed me to co-create in order to be the light? So how do I know when I'm not using my light correctly? We know instantly, because we're taking light, and instead of keeping it in tune with source and thinking spontaneously from source, we're allowing ourselves to ride that light and create a lower frequency of thought, called the fall of man in the Bible. That lower frequency then goes through the central nervous system as fast as light to the heart of every cell, telling the body what the God, you, is asking the whole system to do. So If we think negatively, we know. It's so obvious, which is why the Bible says the truth is simple and it will set you free if you're true to yourself. So the real self, our real self, says to us, just, be careful of that thinking. It's just a habit and conditioning. But every time you take my energy in your breath, take it to your brain, and then externalize it in some kind of imaginary false self-judgment, self-criticism, so imagined lack in some way, you fall energetically. We all know that. It's so obvious. We're all doing it so well. We're masters at it. So we upset ourselves emotionally. We upset the heart. We upset the physicality, and we find ourselves in a mess. I'll share this story with you because Josh, you were saying earlier about he made a mistake. I made a mistake, which was a really big one, a couple of months ago. Well, actually, it started a year ago, where I invested most of my funds with somebody who I grew to really trust, and I got scammed after a year. And when I realized what had happened, many old patterns that I thought I'd overcome come flooding back. You stupid idiot. How did you do that? What made you do that? So I went, okay. I'm hearing Paul's voice about it's a mystery school. It's all a test. You can't handle anything that you're not capable of handling. But I felt in my stomach chakra and all the rest of them, especially in the stomach, I felt completely drained. It was hard to breathe. It was hard to meditate. It was hard to think. And I sat down and I made myself do all those things, especially the breathing, because to me, God is the breath. And if we're not letting God into the body, how do we expect to think clearly and feel good about ourselves? So I sat down and I made myself do those things, and I made myself go deep into the chakras and ask, where was my blind spot? God, show me, where was my blind spot? And I saw. One of the blind spots was my naivety of truly wanting to trust humanity. Big mistake in this case. Some of my weaknesses were forgiveness. Can I forgive this person when I'm like torn inside? I'm thinking I've lost everything, and at my age, how am I ever going to get that back? It's all my savings are gone. What am I going to do now? So I wrestled with that, and I realized, yeah, I can forgive it. Yeah, I'm only hurting myself if I don't. So I changed my energy again by doing that, and then continuing that process. This took me about 10 days to come through. Practicing a light consciousness, practicing a light consciousness. I got to the point of going, okay, God, now I have nothing compared to what I had, really virtually nothing. So there's that saying, let go and let God. So I said, okay, God, I let go. I just totally embrace right now, I have nothing. What's important is how I feel about me and my relationship to knowing God. You're still breathing into me. I still have life. As long as this mind is trained to be present and look around, I've got more than I need in this moment. Absolutely. In fact, too much more than I need in this moment. So I said, okay, God, I forgive. I let go. Please, God, help me to see really clear. So I've learned the lesson of my blind spots of my own energy inside myself in these 7. I let go and let go and let go. And then, as if by a miracle, a friend called me to say she'd met somebody who just happened to be in a very high position that could help me possibly retrieve my funds after I'd let go. So long story short, I have all my money back. But I know, I absolutely know, it's because I passed the test. And I absolutely know now, having gone through that, it was a test. It was a test I brought upon myself, but it was a test in which God's hand was present all along. saying to me, do you trust me or don't you? And perhaps the biggest lesson I've learned from that is the depth of conditioning in you and I from our culture of the fear of identifying with money and external things as our source of security and well-being, when God is our source. Full stop. And I believe truly right now, the whole world is up for that test. We are all in our own way being tested to go that deep within, to truly reconnect with God and source, or whatever you're comfortable calling it, because God doesn't care. So as long as think of it like this, God is my breath. And if I'm not breathing properly, I can't think properly. If I'm not doing exercise, if I'm not taking care of my diet, if I'm not doing everything, it is common sense that my heart and my body says to me every day, please go do something, exercise. And my ego goes, oh, who me? Oh, God, I can't be bothered. It's truly a test of overcoming ourself, the false self, the self-created self, not the true self, which we all know is the voice in that breath, truly speaking to us from our heart of hearts, as long as the mind has been trained to be still and calm and listening and trusting and having faith in yourself on an ego level and in your source. There's a saying, an ancient proverb that says, to know but not to do means not to know. So I'm telling you truly, honestly, my experience of keeping my inner light strong, and how I learn when I've either got sick or something else, which I've done all of these things recently because of deep subconscious things that I hadn't brought to the surface enough in my meditations to change the energy within myself. So as I've done that, I've recently come through some tests where it shows some physical wear and tear because of my age now as well, but also because I do a lot of exercise. I'm in the process of turning that round, even to the point where the doctors are going, blimey, that was pretty quick. What changed there? And a couple of years back, because of martial arts, I was told you need a new shoulder joint. You'll never lift your arm higher than this. And you need two new hip joints because of kicks. And I was in so much pain. I thought, well, maybe I need an operation. So I thought, no, I'll go and get the x-ray so I can see what I'm dealing with, which I did. And then my inner voice said, now, don't just know about healing that you've heard about all these years, do it. So, okay, I've got to deepen this practice. I made myself sit down. I made myself go deeper in my breath. I made myself train this mind to visualize and breathe and see and send energy to the areas where I'd injured myself. And I looked at where was my mind when I injured. Every time it was because I'd seen the master out of the corner of my eye when I was about to throw a punch or throw a kick, and I got distracted. So I wasn't present in that moment. And I paid the price for months on some occasions. So by the saying, be in the moment, is such a challenge for the distraction and the speed of this personality mind. But as we practice that and bring that energy back, it is as simple as the Bible says. When your energy is sitting in the right place by your good effort, that's free will, then everything we've ever heard from Paul or any other great teacher is absolutely true. As Jesus said, you can do everything I've done and more. Thank you so much for the sign. It's absolutely as true for you and I now as it has been from the stories throughout history. That's, I believe, in my experience, again, you have to decide for yourself. In my experience now, that's what this whole universe is showing us on the bigger picture. Come back to me. Prove to yourself, I am the source of your being. How do you do that? Get into this body. Don't just let this mind keep living out there, spending your life force chasing illusory butterflies, as I did with fame and fortune and all that stuff. Right? Bring your energy back to your source. Do the practice. To know but not to do is not to know. Do the practice, and you'll find what I am experiencing when I do it. The results are what all the masters have ever said to me. It doesn't matter what culture or religion or belief processes they've come from. They're all saying the similar thing. You know, do it. Live close to harmony, to nature. Do those things, get into nature, where in our culture we don't. So Tamo-san and the mamas that I was with in Colombia, they say it simply, they say it's very simple. Trust the mind within nature. Trust your intuition, trust your gut feeling, trust yourself to learn how to trust yourself again and get back in the driving seat is as Paul would put it, it is the lesser and the greater mystery of initiation, of self-initiation. I don't know, do we have time for one question or something, if anybody has one? Or I can't hear, so Stephen, you'd have to tell me if that's the case.
Can you hear, John?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay, someone want to ask a question?
Yeah. Tell me where to go.
Here.
Okay, talk to the computer.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, John, it's George
Yeah.
Everett.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hey.
So I know Joshua, I missed him this morning, but I have been started going to Course in Miracles with Tom Baker. Can you hear me, Tom Baker?
Yeah. Got you.
Yeah, he started a Course in Miracles class like 30 years ago. And anyway, so I've been looking at Sonia Coquette and all these different people, Joe Dispenza on the healing part,
Yeah,
and the mind and intuition. But so it always comes up, how do you know, how can you like test your intuition versus your ego and what it wants?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a fine line. You know, the masters say to know yourself is like trying to lick honey from a razor's edge. It's beautiful, isn't it? I love it, you know. But so I've just been on that razor's edge, looking for that honey. Am I going to cut myself because I made this mistake and invested in something out of naivety, or am I going to get the honey? And that's what I held fast to. I will get the honey, as in the Bible, Daniel wrestling with the angel for 40 days, 40 days. So I'm thinking like that. I will not let go of this until I learn this lesson, because it's a lesson I brought upon myself. So I must learn this lesson if I want to know I am truly the source of a co-creator with God. Did not trust my intuition in that investment. Why? Because of my habit conditioning of Western thinking. Oh, well, you know, it sounds good. If I invest my money, I can make some more money and then I can buy a nicer place. Maybe I'm in Portugal right now. Maybe I can buy a place in Portugal and a place in England. You know, it all sounds lovely. And this guy sounds like, oh, he's promised me. Yeah, no problem. Like, we're going to do that. Anyway. So I sold, if you like, I sold my soul, not in a horrible way, but okay. And now in a naive way, I gave my life force to the wrong investment, but I brought myself to a lesson that I've really needed, and I know many people need to pass within themselves in this time, because fraud is one of the biggest expressions of evil that's going on right now.
Thank you, John. That was great.